Hi, and welcome back to my channel and to my series Getting Started with Python in 2022. So in today's lesson, we're going to focus on SQL. SQL stands for Structured Query Language, and it's just a programming language that is mostly used to interact with databases, especially relational databases. Why I choose SQL as a topic for lesson 3. If you have followed the path so far, in lesson number 1, we learned how to display a string on in a terminal, how to input data, pass them to a variable and display this variable. Everything was just stateless, so once the script run or the program ended, the value that we have entered was vanished. So it wasn't stored anywhere, so we couldn't use it. In lesson number 2, we worked with the JSON file and were able to store values in that JSON file and also read from that. So somehow the value that we have entered were saved. But a JSON file is not ideal for data storage. It's more used to transfer data throughout interfaces. We're gonna go into more details in further lessons within this course. A more ideal way to store or save data is to use a database. And in today's lesson, we're going to be using SQLite. SQLite is a relational database that comes within the Python package. So there is no need to install anything additional. And in today's lesson, we're going to also use an abstraction layer with this package called SQLAlchemy. So I personally use it a lot, and when I write code or when I moving throughout my Python business logic, I like to have this abstraction layer to use the classes and objects and attribute instead of always like asking the database by sending SQL statements back and forth. So I'm going to show you how to use SQLAlchemy on a basic use case. We're going to create a database, also create a table named person. We're going to add some values into that table, and then we're going to read from the table. So I hope you will enjoy watching these videos and that will help you getting more comfortable with Python and SQL. So without any further overview, let's get started. So in lesson 1 and 2, we've been using the terminal to write our code, and we've been also using the editor Nano. Today we're gonna use Visual Studio Code. Although click here the Explorer icon, and from there we're gonna create a new folder that we're gonna name Python SQLAlchemy. And then we gonna click create. Once in this folder, we can click add a file that we're gonna name main.pw. And as we are going to use SQLAlchemy, let's start by importing SQLAlchemy. So we start with from SQLAlchemy. So you can see Visual Studio Code is offering you some support by if you click Command and space, you can it gives you what it's going to offer. And from this package, we're going to import a couple of things that we will need later. So to create the database, we will need create engine. For the table, we will need, or for the database, we will need metadata. For the table, we will of course need table. Within the table, we will need a column, and we also will need integer and string. All right. And as I told you prior, once displaying the result, we want to display them into a pandas data frame. So let's also import that and then be done with the imports. Pandas as PT. Okay. So now we are ready to go. So first of all, we gonna create the database. This is done by create engine, and we are going to create SQLite database. So SQLite need this syntax. We're gonna call it my SQLite DB. When using SQLAlchemy, you can connect to any SQL database. It could be like MySQL, could be Postgres, could be Microsoft SQL Server, could be an Oracle, and so on. Every connection string is different, but for SQLite, this is the syntax to connect to a database that is located in a relative path, like in the same folder as your code. You can also add parameters equal to, which simply gonna return what happens once creating the database if there is a problem or something. All right, so once we have created the database, the next thing we're gonna do is retrieve the metadata. So we have a variable called meta. So you see here, every time we use a certain package, it's turned from faded to highlighted. So this is all the support that Visual Studio Code can offer you, among others. And now we gonna create our table by typing person is equal table. And within this table, we need a couple of, first of all, we need to pass the table name, it's going to be person, we're going to use the metadata, and then we're going to start adding the columns. So column 1 going to be the ID, so it's always integer, primary, primary. Yeah, I'm just wondering what it's not showing me. Primary key equal true. I was expecting it to be shown here. No, we need another column named name from type string. Another column, let's age from type integer, and a last column named city, which is gonna be a string. So this is the meta description of our table. Okay. I don't know where this came from. I think I just pressed something and this has been added. So, all right, person, table name, meta, column, primary key, string. We can add some additional attribute, but we don't want to be too complex in this first attempt. So once the table is defined, let's create the table and the database by typing meta and create all. And of course, we need to pass the engine. Okay, so once created, we can, I don't have it on my computer right now, like a SQL client, but then we can see that the table has been created. What we're gonna do right now is we're gonna write a function that we're gonna call it add person. And to this function, we're gonna add a couple of attributes like name, age, and city. And what we want to do is once we call this function, we want those values, name, age, and city, to be passed to this table. So in SQL, we do this by creating an insert statement, and SQLAlchemy offers a function called insert, and insert has this further functions values where we can pass our values like name equal to name, age equal to age, city equal to city. So this sentence gonna create this SQL statement. We need to pass it to a variable that we're gonna call int. And after that, we are going to open a connection to the database by typing engine.connect. And of course, we want to execute the statement. Okay. And after inserting this value, we want to print name has been added to the database. All right, so this function gonna add the value to the database, and from there we can show it. So to show the values on this table, we're gonna create another function that I'm gonna call show all. And within this, let's use pandas. And pandas offer a function read SQL table. It needs the name of the table, and it needs the database itself, which is here stored in this engine variable. So this is going to return the values in the table person and put them into a pandas data frame. So let's store the values into a variable that we're going to call df. And let's print df. All right. So we have now our function to add a person. We have our function to show all. I think here something is missing. Here we have it. And now what we're going to do is the same way we have gathered those values in lesson number 1, we're going to store those data. Well, first of all, let's do some fancy stuff. We ask the user if or to add person, type add, otherwise press any key. Okay. So what we're going to do here is, once we start our script, if the user wants to add a new values to the table. He types add, so we are in the add mode. Otherwise, we're going to display. And how to implement that in Python is very simple with an if-else statement. So we're going to write if mode equal to add, do that, and what we're going to do is we can ask for a name, we can ask for an age, we can ask for a city, and put I like to use the parentheses, so enter a name, here we go. So enter an age, enter a city. Okay. After we have the name, the age, and the city all in those variables, we're going to call add person and pass the values, name, age, and city. And that should be it. So this is if our mode is add. If not, else, we want to display the content of the table by calling show all. All right, so that should be it. Let's save our code, open a terminal, so we see our file main.py, and let's run our code. Python 3. So something went wrong. No module SQLAlchemy. So SQLAlchemy is not installed. So what we're going to do is pip3 install SQLAlchemy. So here we go. And now let's call our code again. Create engine. Okay, so I forgot to, this is the right syntax, Control S, and let's try again. Couldn't log plugin, SQLAlchemy dialect, SQLite. just one. Right, let's try it again. I thought. Okay, so here we have what we asked for. To add a person, type add, otherwise press any key. So we're gonna add. So we are in add mode. So we've been asked to enter a name. My name is Adira. My age is 45 and city is Frankfurt. Connection execute. Missing one requirement. Of course, I forgot to pass the statement here. So you've been witnessing what's what's going on in the daily life of a programmer. So executing, we need to pass the statement, of course, and save. So let's clear all this and start new. So all right, so to add a person, let's just add one add, again add here, 45, Frankfurt, and we see Adil has been added to the database. So if we call our code again and we press enter, we see that we have one entry inside. Let's clear the terminal and call our code again. So the reason why we are seeing all this code here is because we just put the echo is equal to true. So I will move it to false. Save. Restart the terminal. And okay, so now we have like a clearer view. So let's tap enter. So we see we have just one entry. If we call it again and then add, we can add another person. Let's say John. John is 35, from New York City. John has been added to the database. If we call our strict again, so we see we have two entries. So let's do it again. Add, say Carlos. Carlos is 52 from the city, beautiful city of Mexico. Add, we call, let's clear the terminal, and if we call our script again, press, so we see that we have now more entries. Yeah, so that was it with lesson number 3. You've learned how to create a database, how to create a table, enter data, display this data. Just thinking about maybe in lesson number 4 to add more different statement to our database. I will also install a client, SQLite client, to show you how does it look inside the database using the client. And from there on, we will not be just using the terminal, but we will change those functions into API functions, and we will call them using an API client like Postman. So I hope you have enjoyed this video, you have learned something from it, and that you feel more comfortable using Python and SQL, and also SQLAlchemy. If you like it, just press the like button and subscribe. That will help me create more of this content. Yeah, thank you very much and see you next time. Bye bye.